Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. Scott, and I will be presenting today on Family Educational Rights and the Privacy Act. First off, what is the Federal Rights and Privacy Act? It's also known as FERPA for short. It is the federal law that protects the privacy of students' education records maintained by or on behalf of the educational agencies or institution, so private schools, public schools, all of that sort of stuff. It allows parents some rights to their children's education. The things that they say that are within FERPA that parents are allowed to see are the right to inspect and review their child's records, the right to seek to have the educational records amended, also the right to have some control in the disclosure of the child's education or personal information. Important facts about FERPA is the law provides a little bit about what I just said, that parents are able to inspect and receive copies of the student's records, the right to deny access to others outside the school system, the process to correct errors, this would be including a hearing, the right to opt out of military recruitment, the right to opt out of disclosure of students' directly information. Some of the shortcomings of FERPA is that does not give the right to sue the school. If a school is not following FERPA guidelines, the United States Department of Education will hand down sanctions depending on what has been violated. It puts a burden on the students and the parents to respond to the opt-out opportunities. It also does not dictate requirements of safeguards regarding the educational records. Who enforces FERPA? It is the FBCO, and they are the Family Policy Compliance Office that is within the Department of Education for the United States. The FBCO will investigate the school's procedures if it so be that a parent or student would to file a complaint against the school, and in this case, Washington Rule, and then they would decide what action should be taken and what that action is. So what is an educational record? We got to figure this out. Records that are directly related to a student, maintained by the educational agency, or an acting party that is acting as the school. The children with disabilities who receive evaluation services or other benefits of the idea, everything is confidential underneath that. It has to be a requirement that everything underneath that is subject to FERPA and things that can be violated. These are a few things that are within the educational record. These are students' grades, their health history, disciplinary history, progress reports, academic or physical testing, their overall GPA, also their attendance. So there's a lot of information there that's very personal. So not a whole lot of people would like to have that handed out to others. What is not in the educational records? Private records on a teacher during a course and how they teach. It does not have peer graded papers grades on there. So somebody else, like if I would to grade somebody's paper, that their grade would not go under my stuff or vice versa. Employment records also do not go on the educational records unless the employment is contingent to and upon enrollment or attendance. Law enforcement or campus security records created to maintain solely in law enforcement reasons, and then overall the alumni records. So once you graduate, once you move on, that they'll keep that it doesn't go part of your education, it goes into something else. Surveillance videos. FERPA also has started to cover surveillance now that 90% of schools probably use surveillance cameras to keep students safe and just to keep an eye on things to make sure everything's going all right. This is under the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment prohibits governmental entities, like in our case, public schools, from conducting unreasonable searches. So the question is, do surveillance videos violate FERPA? And there is some of that, and there is not, that it does violate. It does not violate. Courts have acted upon in low expectation of privacy areas. So where it is highly unlikely that you're going to be of any privacy would be the low expectation area. So examples would be a hallway in a big school, a lot of times outside, maybe on the playground, being around the building. Those would be low expectation areas. High expectation areas would be a lot more the classroom, going to the bathroom, being in a locker room, things like that. You have that higher expectation of being in a private area. So those would definitely violate FERPA. In 1986, the Electronic Communications Privacy Act came about, and it prohibits the international interception of any oral communication except where one party to the conversations has consented to the recording. So this is called one-way consent, saying that I could, if I consented to the video or consented to a recording, then all parties involved within that are also consenting because I have. Now, some states have adopted also the two-part, the two-part consent as well now. Surveillance cameras also goes under images of students captured on surveillance recording qualify as educational records when video or photo is directly related to a student and maintained by the educational institution or an entity acting for the school. So this is saying that originally this sort of stuff did not go into the student's record. But if it falls under a disciplinary action or things that are directly related to a single student or a group that ends up being broken down into single students, that these images can also qualify within the education records, which also, again, cannot be shared. Directly related to a student has multiple different factors when going into it. So these are important things to know, and I kind of hinted on one, that the recording is being used as disciplinary. This would also be including a victim, whether the recording depicts an activity that would reasonably result in disciplinary actions, or violating a law, or shows getting a student injured, attacked, or victimized, or a health emergency. Also, this should be intended, like when you're watching, it intends to make a specific student focus on the recording or videos. It should just be you watch, you figure out who you're looking for, and that's it. Whether the content contains personal information from the student's educational record also makes a big difference. Data destruction. In the age of where technology rules and how we run things, but still we have to follow FERPA with all this stuff. Even though everything is on a computer, we have to have a way to securely keep things safe and securely get rid of things, so destruct things that are online. To ensure accountability for destruction of personal identifiable information by using certification forms which are signed by individual responsible for performing the destruction and contains detailed information about the destruction. When storing electronic data, appropriate data deletion methods to ensure data cannot be recovered. This will help with destroying CDs or DVDs. It also will help data that no longer required, destroy media and other means just to make things sure that are safe. Vendors. This is really about a third-party vendor and who we have help us within our school, who we maybe use on the outside for data, for things that we have within our building, but they would like something as well. Schools should really make sure they have agreements with vendors that they understand what they're doing and to comply with whatever. And the schools have to realize that they're liable for those outside vendors. You want those vendors to comply with FERPA rules. Be careful with vendors that are free. They could be getting paid for the records or selling them to another party. Yet again, schools are still responsible for what these vendors do with the data. Because once they get that, that's going against all of FERPA rules. Within USD 437 Board of Education, if a school collects, discloses, or uses personal information from students for the purpose of marketing or selling that information, parents shall have the right to inspect any instrument used for the collection of such information before it is administered or distributed to students in school. Parents shall be provided with notice of such activities and provided an opportunity to opt their child of this activity. The next section was the release of information. Within the Board of Educational Policies, it says FERPA writes, unless the information collected from the students is designated for as a directory information, then it should be released to a third party without written consent. Next, student records. This is what they have located in student records. All student records shall be treated as confidential and primarily for local school use unless otherwise stipulated. The general public shall not be allowed to inspect a student's personal record files except for the IDAE with regards to student records, which are student data submitted to or maintain the statewide longitude data system. So only if it's within the realms of what the state wants to know information-wise within the education, not providing names and things like that. The next, I looked up in our policies of the use of video cameras, and I felt like some of this is obviously based off of possibly some things with phones, things like that. But I try to go a little bit more of the surveillance cameras and what they're used for. It does say in the policies that the district may use video cameras to monitor student activity. Video cameras may be used to monitor students riding in district vehicles and to monitor students' behavior in or around any district facilities. We do have cameras, multiple cameras in every bus that can be recorded and looked at when needed or if a situation arises. Also, next, recorded images that are records of students' behavior shall be secured in a locked file until they are reused, deleted, or erased. The recording images shall be considered a student record and shall be subject to current law for the release of the student record information. So it's still covered under FERPA on all of that. And that wraps up my presentation over FERPA. Here are my references. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.